Hello, I'm Brenda Howerton, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners. It is my pleasure to bring to you the first of a series of messages that will comprise a new version of the state of the county. Most of you will remember the time when the chair of the board would bring this annual message to Durham County residents during a regular commissioners meeting. Normally, I would be speaking in our board chambers and joined by my fellow commissioners, county administrators, department heads, and members of the public to review the accomplishments of the past year. But as you know, the past year and a half has challenged all of us to make changes and to rethink the word normal. Over the next few weeks, I'll bring you a series of messages to showcase what your Durham County government has done during the pandemic, an overview of our approved budget, and finally, I will talk about how we are moving forward to help our community recover from the pandemic and our plans to use ARPA funds from the federal government. My goal is to showcase the critical work that was performed by our 2,000 plus Durham County employees and community partners to help manage life during this most difficult, challenging, and extraordinary period. Let's begin the review, shall we? Planning for the pandemic began behind the scenes in January 2020, when our emergency management team and public health staff, led by our own new director, Rod Jenkins, started working with state public health officials to monitor COVID-19.
Management officials to protect the health and well-being of Durham County. COVID-19 is a new infection.
At this point, we heard only a little about coronavirus, mostly in the world news reports. That work involved activating preparedness efforts for communities as the disease began to take shape. Public health also began to message CDC advice regarding the critical precautions everyone should take to avoid the disease. Then in early March, a cyber attack hit Durham County and the city of Durham. Our IS&T director, Greg Morrow, and his counterpart at the city spoke to the public about the incident and the impact.
We executed our incident plan.
They announced that no taxpayer or employee personnel data had been compromised in the attack. It was a well-known cyber threat that had hit other governments, but fortunately, there was no demand for money. With our Emergency Operations Center activated, Emergency Management coordinated state resources, including the National Guard, Cyber Security Team. Emergency Management staff secured additional laptops, cradle points, and Wi-Fi systems from AT&T and Verizon. Obtained laptop computers from neighboring counties, Dell, and state IT agencies so that county and city staff could continue to operate. Emergency Management hosted daily and then weekly coordinated calls with city and county IT staff, state IT, Microsoft, National Guard, and others. As we recover, that schedule continued with city and county officials and staff as we began to focus on ever-rising cases of COVID-19. As coronavirus continued to spread, Governor Roy Cooper issued an executive order declaring a state of emergency. That meant emergency operations centers, including our own, continue to develop response plans and take the necessary steps to keep residents safe and healthy. We soon began to see COVID-19 cases in the Triangle and in Durham County. Workers attending a convention in the Northeast returned home, and a few were diagnosed with coronavirus. In a few more days, a group of university students returned from spring break in the Middle East with coronavirus. That began our intense efforts to inform the community about this growing public health threat. Slow the spread and flatten the curve became new terms we heard daily from our experts. Public health staff increased its work to identify positive cases and to coordinate with the medical community to aggressively attack this pandemic. Coronavirus was officially declared a pandemic by the World Health Organization on March 11th. On March 13th, a national emergency was declared in the United States. As schools transitioned from in-person to virtual, employees from Durham County and Durham Public School Systems set up a daily feeding program for families whose students were on free and reduced lunch. This continued throughout the rest of the school year. Durham County issued a declaration of emergency on March 14th, and Governor Cooper's executive order shut down all state libraries, including in Durham County. Sunday, March 15th, our county manager ordered all Durham County offices closed to the public beginning March 23rd due to the twin impact of coronavirus and the recovery from the March 6th cyber malware attack. Our Board of Commissioners suspended our meetings between March 23rd until April 13th. At that time, we transitioned into the world of Zoom meetings, like so many other elected boards and councils. In the early days of this crisis, our county manager, general managers, and department heads held daily communication to share updates on operations and challenges that emerged as Durham County responded to the twin challenges that resulted from addressing a cyber malware attack and the coronavirus pandemic. That's right. While most other governments were battling the significant effects of COVID, we had a double whammy, with the cyber attack causing everyone to work twice as hard to manage. The Emergency Operations Center staff conducted daily virtual meetings with key leaders of city and county government to address challenges and stay on top of trends as the cases began to escalate. Various task forces were created using Durham County employees to plan and respond to critical needs, including food delivery to the most vulnerable and sheltering the homeless in safe conditions. The EOC team coordinated the COVID-19 operational planning and response. A few major priorities included make an alert Durham available for public health use for the duration of the event to send out COVID-19 messages. Contract negotiations to secure hotel rooms for use as non-congregate shelters for vulnerable citizens living unsheltered. Coordinating volunteer and donations management and handing off that support to the Salvation Army. Coordinating DSS, EMS, community paramedics, and public health for individual and family wellness checks. Securing PPE and distributing masks, gloves, face shields. Our employees began teleworking as county departments were still operating, but generally scaled back for months. Thankfully, our departments had developed continuity of operations plans, and with a few updates and pivots, major Durham County services continued to be available to the community. With the physical closing of county building, departments worked dynamically to provide service online where possible and as needed. In-person services with overall goals of protecting staff and citizens alike. Here are some examples. Register of Deeds announced reduced services, initially also due to the malware cyber attack. As technology was restored, online records became available and appointments were offered. Social services operated with limited staff on site. By rotating its staff, Mandated and core services were provided, including Medicaid enrollment, food stamp enrollment, child protective services, and more. Tax administration adapted its remote call center and implemented a live chat feature on the tax website to respond to COVID. As a result, the department received a National Association of Counties Achievement Award for the feature that lessened call wait times. Durham County Public Health developed a rigorous public information response that included the creation of a dedicated website for coronavirus information available in English and Spanish. Public Health Director Rod Jenkins began to tape weekly videos
I'm Rod Jenkins, Director of the
to
Durham.
inform the public on current trends and critical information. They were posted on social media and Durham Television Network 8. Durham County has critical functions that operate on a 24/7 basis, such as Durham County Youth Home, Office of the Sheriff, Durham County Wastewater Treatment Plant, Emergency Medical Services, and more. These operations, along with agencies that must support them, such as General Services, maintain all normal operations despite the pandemic. In many cases, the workload increased due to the demand for additional services to ensure safety of buildings against COVID. Additional cleaning services were engaged to help comply with CDC requirements. Durham County Public Information staff moved into action to continuously develop and place services update on the county's website and social media.
We won't have contaminated clothing to spread the coronavirus.
The Durham County TV show shifted resources and reassigned them, allowing department heads to take timely weekly video updates describing the current state of their operations.
Hello, Durham. This is Leslie O'Connor, Chief Emergency Manager.
Those videos were placed on social media and Durham County's YouTube
We will
channel.
not be issuing additional enforced collection actions, such as wage garnishments and bank attachments, during this time.
Durham County, I will end this section here and share more of our efforts in my next report. Stay safe, and I will see you for part 2 of the state of the county. Hello, I'm Brenda Howerton, Chair of the Board of Durham County Commissioners. It is my pleasure to bring you our second installment of the State of Durham County. In our first episode, we focused on the extraordinary work our employees performed in planning for identifying and addressing the pandemic. We confronted the ever-changing challenges that emerged with the goal of protecting the lives of our citizens. In this report, I will share our successes and challenges with new and expanded programs and services that we have implemented during the period. As the pandemic continued, Public Health created a coronavirus data hub to give real-time updates on the number of cases, hospitalizations, recoveries, deaths, related demographics, geographic information, and other key metrics about the cases. As Governor Cooper put the state under similar closing orders, Durham County's rules were established and were even more strict. The requirement of mask wearing was implemented here earlier than in other areas, which resulted in Durham County's lower rate of cases. While our nation was battling with pandemic, the presidential election was also being held. That gave election officials perhaps the greatest challenge ever experienced. How to conduct a safe election during a pandemic. Our elections department developed safety protocols for staff and our voters. Educational videos were created in English and Spanish.
Prefiero votar en persona.
¿Pero tienes preocupaciones?
Claro que sí.
To help voters know how to safely cast ballots.
When voting in person,
Thanks to excellent leadership by the Board of Elections, a record number of voters participated in the 2020 elections, either by mail or in person. With the high number of voters, 2020 was referred to as an historic general election. During the 2020 election, NIDA alum and Namashina Burns were elected as new Durham County Commissioners. They joined our historic, now all-female Board of Commissioners. Our community said goodbye to 2 county commissioners in November. Former Chair Ellen Reckow, who served for a record-setting 32 years, and Commissioner James Hill, who served a 4-year term. A much-needed bright spot in the battle against COVID happened when vaccines were given emergency FDA approval. Durham County began giving vaccines on December 22, 2020. Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson were music in the ears of everyone hoping to put COVID behind us and start the recovery in 2021. As local governments continue to grapple with the tasks that presented themselves, the federal government sent much-needed dollars into communities to help individual families along with state and local governments. Our federal government passed the CARES Act, which included payments to state and local governments to assist with the cost of COVID. Durham County received funds to help offset mounting costs of providing various services that had not been anticipated. Many families and individuals received stimulus checks that provided fast and direct economic assistance. Small businesses and industries also received federal funds to help maintain employees and operations. Durham County, the City of Durham, and Duke University created the Small Business Recovery Fund. This $3 million program was managed by the Carolina Small Business Development Fund, as they had the infrastructure to ensure the program's success. Over 175 small minority and women-owned local businesses were helped in their fight for survival. Durham County's success in attracting new companies and expanding existing ones continued. A few major companies that announced new and expanding efforts in Durham County included SmartWires, bringing its corporate headquarters and investing $21.5 million. Beam Therapeutic, which brought an $83 million deal. Eli Lilly and Company, which announced a $474 million deal. And Google, which will eventually bring 1,000 jobs to the area. As we normally do, our Board of Commissioners held a budget retreat, giving direction to staff for the process. Some of our priorities included providing funds to address the broad needs resulting from COVID, providing tax relief to low-income citizens, job creation and workforce development, reducing Black maternal and infant mortality, supporting back-to-work efforts post-pandemic, supporting an increase in mental health services, improving prosperity for all through education. After months of management and budget staff work and board deliberations, we unanimously approved a $736 million budget, which included a 1-cent tax increase. Our rate went to 72.22 cents per $100 of valuation. I'm proud to say our board made important strategic investments in this budget. Let me share a few highlights. With education, A continuing priority, we provided more than $166 million in funding for Durham Public Schools. In support of another long-term educational board priority, pre-K expansion increased slightly, over $250,000. The budget allotment for pre-K expansion now totals $5.62 million for the coming year. This budget also includes $942,000 to support the new long-term homeowner grant program for residents at or below 30% of the area median income. Grants are to be awarded to qualifying homeowners to help reduce the amount of property taxes due. Supporting workforce development and job creation, our budget has $906,000 to support Durham Technical Community College's workforce pipeline initiative and operations. In 2020, we approved $60,000, hoping it would leverage $240,000 in grants through the U.S. Economic Development Administration's Economic Adjustment Assistance Program. Durham Tech recently received that money and now will expand the school's biotechnology course offerings and bring the county its first aseptic training program. We provided a 3% cost of living adjustment for all employees and brought back merit pay increases based on performance. By doing this, we tried to honor the incredible work performed by essential personnel during the previous year's pandemic. This budget also funded 60 total new positions across multiple county departments to support increased work demands. Durham County hired its first food security coordinator, Mary Oxendine, who will support the community to create a strong and equitable food system for residents to find affordable and healthy food. Several new initiatives with the City of Durham began to take shape during this period. The 17-member Durham City-County Racial Equity Commission was created to advocate for policies that will help eliminate the burden of systemic and institutional inequities and racism in Durham County. The Durham Community Safety and Wellness Task Force was formed by Durham County, the City of Durham, and Durham Public Schools to conduct a comprehensive review of existing institutional and community-based public safety and wellness resources and to make recommendations for improvement. Through an interlocal agreement, we have also joined the city to hire a refugee and immigrant affairs coordinator who will work to build relationships and partnerships with organizations that serve the immigrant community. Ensuring that our elderly residents age gracefully is a board priority. The Durham Master Aging Plan Committee and its 5 working groups are examining the areas of civic participation, transportation, housing, community support, health services, and more. Protecting our LGBTQ community from discrimination is critical, and our Board of Commissioners will soon bring forward a non-discrimination ordinance that protects LGBTQ residents from discrimination in many areas of life. As I begin to wrap up, I must take a moment to say that we have amazingly talented employees at Durham County government. Even in a pandemic, our staff continue to gain national awards for their innovative work. Several of our county departments received the National Association of Counties Achievement Awards for their visionary work. National Association of Counties recognize our Durham County Tax Administration for its multifaceted COVID-19 response. Tax adapted its remote call center and implemented a live chat feature on its website. NACO recognized our Board of Election for its Board of Elections poll count application, which helped reduce the number of calls to the Board of Election regarding precinct openings and unofficial counts. NACO recognized public health for its COVID-19 vaccine distribution dashboard. Public Health, Office of Emergency Services and Information Services, and Technology collaborated to develop the COVID-19 vaccine distribution dashboard. The Strategic Planning and Innovation Division of the County Manager's Office received a 2021 Excellence in Innovation Award from the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners for its DCO Talks, Employee Virtual Learning Sessions. We are so proud of this great work by all of our employees. In my final segment, I will talk about efforts now in the works to assist our recovery with the help of $62 million in federal funding and more that will be coming into our community. Thank you for your attention, and don't miss our final State of the County message. Hello, I'm Brenda Howerton, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners. It is my pleasure to bring you our final installment of the State of the County Address. In our first episode, I focused on the extraordinary work our employees performed in planning for, identifying, and addressing the pandemic. We confronted the ever-changing issues that emerged with the goal of protecting the lives of our citizens. In our second report, I'll continue to focus on our successes and challenges in trying to manage during a pandemic. In this third and final report, I want to talk about the most significant federal legislation that has ever been approved and shared with state and local governments. Following payments to state and local governments to navigate the impact of the COVID-19 outbreak through the $150 billion coronavirus relief fund and the billions of dollars in federal COVID relief aid that went to the state's schools, Congress approved another major piece of legislation to provide even more broad COVID relief.
American Rescue Plan. Yesterday, with the final passage of the plan in the House of Representatives, their voices were heard and reflected on everything we have in this bill. And I believe this is, and most people I think do as well, this historic legislation is about rebuilding the backbone of this country and giving people in this nation, working people, middle-class folks, people who built the country, a fighting chance. That's what the essence of it is. So, thank you for being here.
The American Rescue Plans Act, or ARPA, legislation was signed into law this March by President Biden. The American Rescue Plan will deliver $350 billion for state, local, territorial, and tribal governments to respond to COVID-19 emergency. Funding will also focus on infrastructure issues that face communities, including efforts to bring jobs back. The good news is that Durham County will receive $62 million. Half of these funds have been shared with our county, and the remaining half will be appropriated a year from now. Funds are intended to cover costs from March 3rd, 2021 through December 31, 2024. And finally, the funds must be encumbered by 2024, with all invoices paid by 2026. This is a great deal of money, and there are specific priorities included in the legislation. Let me quickly walk you through the areas that governments, including Durham County, can use this money for. In general, here are the 6 categories outlined in the legislation. Support public health responses. These monies will fund the battle against COVID-19 medical expenses, mental health, care, and certain public health and public safety staff. Replace public sector revenue loss. These funds can be used to provide government services in the case of revenue reductions resulting from the pandemic. Water and sewer infrastructure. We are allowed to make investments to improve access to clean drinking water and invest in wastewater and stormwater infrastructure. Address negative economic impacts. The money will help governments respond to economic harms to workers, families, small businesses, impacted industries, and the public sector. Premium pay for essential workers. Fortunately, governments are allowed to offer additional support to workers who have and will bear the greatest health risks because of their direct service in critical infrastructure sectors. Broadband infrastructure. This helps make necessary investments to provide unserved or underserved locations with new or expanded broadband access. This funding provides us with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make important enhancements in our community. In addition to the funds we will receive at Durham County, this legislation also provides a little over $52 million for the City of Durham. Together, these funds will allow your local governments to work collaboratively to make a real impact on the quality of life for our citizens. Currently, both the county and the city are developing a process to seek your help in developing appropriate programs and processes to spend this money according to strict federal guidelines developed by the U.S. Treasury. The critical point is this: if we don't use the money according to the guidelines, we will have to return it. I want you to know that your commissioners are working with our staff to develop a critical evaluation process to ensure that the final selection projects make the highest and greatest impact for our citizens for many years to come. Over the summer, there have been 2 citizen engagement meetings to begin to share information and to hear your ideas and your priorities for the future. In June and August, the city and the county jointly sponsored 2 Zoom sessions to begin to solicit your ideas and suggestions on how to spend the money. So far, more than 300 citizens have shared their input. Also, some 80 proposals have been submitted suggesting possible programs on which to spend the money. Don't worry that you have missed this process. We have allowed more time for your elected officials to hear from you. There are a few more upcoming community engagement opportunities to solicit your ideas and suggestions. Between now and November, there will be 3 more community engagement opportunities. While 2 meetings will probably be virtual, we are trying to conduct an in-person meeting in the unincorporated area of the county, depending on COVID conditions. Be assured you will hear more about that soon. There's a great deal of work being conducted on this plan, but we need your participation. Please visit our Durham County website, dconc.gov, where we have added a special section on the funding process. Also on the site, we will announce the details for the upcoming meetings. We encourage you to read more and follow the opera process closely. As I mentioned earlier, we must use these funds wisely to make strategic investments in the 6 areas as required by the federal government. As I close, let me thank you again for your attention. Indeed, we look forward to your great ideas to help us make Durham even better. Have a great day and thank you for participating. in Durham County government.